Yachting Monthly is here on board the OE32 Oleana with her skipper, Jeremy Bagshaw, who is one of the two South African GGR skippers. Jeremy, just talk me through why you chose the boat.
It was actually a very simple decision. I really admired the boat's lines, and I thought a friend of mine who knows a hell of a lot about boats and relative boat speed just looked at it and said, man, that boat's all waterline. And although she's the shortest length overall boat in the fleet, she has the second longest waterline length of everybody. She's nice and light, and as importantly, she was available in Cape Town, because for me to have gone abroad to go and buy a boat and take her back to Cape Town to be refitted would have been just, it wouldn't have worked.
And of course she was in Cape Town because she belonged to the Norwegian 2018 GGR skipper, Are Wig, and he obviously got dismasted off South Africa and then came into Cape Town under jury rig, and quite an impressive display of seamanship. Just talk to me how you refitted the boat and made her ready for this race.
I guess she was handed back to the insurance company that then owned her after Are's a very unfortunate incident. And then a boat builder from Royal Cape Yacht Club down in Cape Town purchased her and started the refit process. He did repaired all the structural damage that the boat had suffered in the dismasting, and fitted a new mast to her. And then basically at that stage I nagged him until he agreed to sell me the boat, but she was an absolute disaster below. She'd been stripped of everything that was worth anything, so she was effectively a shell with most of the original furniture, but in an awful condition. And I got her like that and basically started from scratch, which was actually a good thing to be able to do.
So you feel like you properly know your boat?
Every nut and bolt.
Have you done most of the work yourself?
I've done a tremendous amount myself. I was fortunate enough to have some really good guys giving critical technical input where necessary. My team manager, Franz, is an amateur boat builder. He's built a couple of boats himself, so wherever I needed input on structural issues and things, he was right there to help. I was in the last few years, I helped two friends start a rigging company, and I was very involved with that. So I had their very, very valuable input as riggers into the standing and running rigging aspect of it. And yeah, the Cape Town boat building industry rallied around with all sorts of advice and technical knowledge, which I didn't have, and so it was a bit of a group effort.
And with the mast, is the mast stronger than the last one?
Yes, I believe it is. It's a different brand of mast. It's a mast built by Sparcraft in Cape Town. In the Cape, we tend to overbuild things given the conditions that we sail in all the time, and I believe it's an exceptionally strong mast. A month or two before I left Cape Town, we actually sent the mast back to the factory, and they put additional reinforcing and strengthening points and a couple of little features to make her even more suitable for this race.
Because obviously she's been dismasted once, that must be going through your mind.
Not at all.
No,
not at all. No, I spoke to Are about that, and he literally told me it was a wave in a million. He said you could sail the rest of your life and never see the same conditions again. And I'm very confident with this rig. It's been incredibly well built. I think it will survive most things. Yeah, you can never say never, but I'm leaving with the best possible chance of coming back with this rig.
Now, you obviously started sailing and represented your country sailing Optimist dinghies.
Correct.
Is that part of the reason why you decided to go for a slightly smaller boat, or?
Not really. I like the idea of small boats. I like to be able to pick up and carry any one of my sails, sometimes two at the same time. The boat is very sailable. She's easy to manage. She's lighter than all the other boats in the fleet, so it doesn't require a lot of effort and energy to get her moving and keep her moving. And I like that idea. Everybody focuses on, and for very good reason, focuses on the Southern Ocean and the legs through the South Indian and Pacific Oceans. But there's a tremendous amount of up and down work, getting down to Cape Town and getting back from Uruguay. And I think that is where a boat like this may have a slight advantage.
So you think she'd be faster than maybe a Rustler or Biscay?
I don't want to jinx anything, but we've had very limited opportunity to sail against one-on-one against the other boats. When sailing from Guillaume, most of the rest of the fleet used their engines at some stage, and I didn't. So the if you could like to call them results of that race were somewhat skewed. But I think Ara proved in the last race that he didn't have any problem staying up with the front runners, and I'd like to think that I'll be able to do that too.
No, I mean before his dismasting, he was in the top half of the fleet.
Well, he was lying third when he was dismasted after one retirement, so you could say maybe fourth. But I think there's, people have said to me, "Are you worried about the rustlers?" And I'm not worried about the rustlers. I'm worried about some of the sailors that sail them. They're really good. So, and I think it's more a case of who we're sailing against rather than what boat. We're all sailing old, slow boats, but there's some skippers here who will really make their old, slow boat go much faster than other people will make their old, slow boats go.
And what do you think gives you the edge in this race?
I don't think I have an edge, well, not one that I'm aware of. We'll find out. It would be bragging to say that I had an edge without actually testing it first. So I'll recuse myself from that answer.
And as far as storm tactics go, are you settled on those now?
I'm pretty much in the Dumas and Morticia sort of way of thinking, and I think that's just natural coming from a dinghy sailing background. You're used to keeping the boat moving as quickly as possible. I dare say there will be times where I'm absolutely exhausted and I'll look at alternatives, but I'm certainly not in the drogue camp.
Okay, can you show us around the cockpit and the rest of the boat?
Yes, certainly.
Lovely.
Well, let's remove the buckets and start at the back. I've elected to go for a wind pilot wind vane.
What was the reason for that?
Well, firstly familiarity, or secondly familiarity with it. And I've sailed many miles with many different types of wind vanes, and I found all of them to be exceptionally good. But for this transom, which is most importantly for me, it's a very accessible unit. I can repair, replace or service any part of the wind vane without getting off the boat, and that is incredibly important. I've sailed with the likes of Hydrovane before, fantastic piece of equipment, but in order to, if your shearpin breaks with it and you have a transom like this, you basically got to get into the sea to sort it out, and I'm too cautious for that. So it was horses for courses. The wind pilot's an incredibly effective and powerful piece of equipment, and it's exactly right for the type of boat that I have.
And your cockpit is it's fairly wide, it's fairly open.
Yes.
Although there's some deep coamings there, so you're feeling you'll be secure?
Yes, it's a very. I've had it in some reasonably robust conditions, and it is a very secure. You get a good feeling in the cockpit. I've got several strong points to hook into. I've got oversized cockpit drains that will drain very quickly, but I've never yet had it fill up. And yeah, a very, very handy cockpit. I've got a third crew member, which is a lot of people express interest in it. It's the cockpit, the tiller comb, and it's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's like having someone you say, "Here, just hold the tiller," and then you just clip it in, and obviously when you don't need it, it just folds down. I've got a little memento on my tiller. This is the tiller that I inherited with the boat, that a good friend of mine put a South African R1 coin minted in 1969, and the significance of that being that was the year that Sir Robin finished his first race, so he put that into the tiller for me.
Oh, brilliant. And I notice as well that all the lines are kind of led aft, so you're going to be...
No.
Okay, so...
All my control lines for the sails come aft.
Okay.
But the only thing all halyards are on the mast.
Okay.
All reefing lines are on the mast.
Okay.
The only adjustments I can make from in the cockpit are my tack lines, my jibe preventers, and my foreguy,
Okay.
and the outhaul. In fact, basically the only things I would want to change underway.
Okay, and I noticed also then so in the companionway, a lot of people have got almost submarine doors. Yours looks more traditional.
It's very much traditional. I have conventional slide down washboards. They're 10mm bulletproof polycarbonate, so they're transparent, so I can put them in place and still see out. And I have a cockpit tent, which I think a lot of guys have as well, which zips onto the back of the spray dodger with a roll-up section in the middle, so just so I don't have to close the companionway. I can have that sort of patio experience.
I also provide you some good protection in the Southern Ocean.
Yeah, anywhere you're running downwind and you get rain, obviously the tendency is for it to blow inside, and you want to try and keep that out if possible.
Can we go up on deck?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Okay, again, everything has just been a case of keep it as simple as possible. I've got a furler, an oversized furler for the Genoa. Mm-hmm. My staysail is on Hanks, and it's also the inner forestay would be the one that I would put my storm jib on.
Obviously, that means having to come up to the bow to.
I've got to come up for the halyard anyhow, so
Okay.
it's I think the philosophy behind that is that it tends to make you a little bit more cautious and to plan ahead. If you know you can just pull a line and fill something away, you might get a little bit gung-ho, overconfident. I know I'm going to get wet and cold if I do it at the wrong time, so it tends to make you anticipate things a bit.
So that was a deliberate.
It was a deliberate thing.
Okay.
Also redundancy and weight. I didn't want the weight of an additional furler on the bow, and I like the idea that if a furler breaks, I've still got Hanks.
Yeah. And can we walk down below? I see
Certainly.
you're obviously airing the boat out a little bit and getting ready to go.
Yep.
And you've
This is also quite an interesting little
Yeah.
thing. It's very fashionable on modern production catamarans to have that sort of thing. But for me, not being the tallest guy around, not only is it a rope bag, but it also enables me to reach things that I wouldn't normally be able to. Reefing winch, main halyard, and Genoa halyard winch. Opted for a rack for the Genoa so that it takes the load off any deck fittings and cuts down on stretch. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Twin spinnaker poles, the same two that Ari used in his jury rig process, and then I've added in a whisker pole as well for holding out my staysail or storm jib, whichever one I'm using.
And how many reefs in the main?
I've got 3, but the first one is very deep. The second one brings the head just below the top of the running backstays, and then the third one is like ridiculously small, and it'll probably seem too big when I'm out there. I hope you don't mind if Franz comes and sits.
No, not at all. It's raining, of course. That would be a bit churlish not to let him in.
So nothing particularly earth-shattering down here, but
It's wide. It's roomy.
maybe because it's less cluttered. I have a problem with clutter in my life. Everything has to be as uncluttered as possible. Starting up at the front, what was once upon a time a reasonably sized, what the Americans call V-berth, got cut in half by the watertight bulkhead. So it's now essentially purely a sail storage, sail locker. Hanging locker, which is like way overloaded, and all my medical kits are in there, and all my clothes for the next 8 months are in these 3 drawers, which is not a lot of stuff, but it's all good stuff.
Yeah. Have you gone for kind of merino wool and?
Yes. Yeah. I had a long chat with Nigel Musto from North Sales, whose gear, foul weather gear I'm using, and he was absolutely adamant that's the only way to go. And I mean, he should know.
He should.
Yeah. I believe one was permitted to do without the toilet, but had to keep the toilet door, but I've kept both. I've noticed people don't fall overboard when they're using these. So it's a safety thing as well.
It's an interesting divide actually in the fleet about who's got a head and who's using a bucket.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any reason not to use it, and I also have the luxury if I decide to use a bucket, I can. Then, just in terms of gear and stuff that we have on board, barograph borrowed from a friend. Wonderful piece of equipment that you can get your weather pressure trends. Below that, a beautiful coffee painting by the lady who's done all my media work for me, Michelle. 2 clocks, one will stay on ship's time, one on UTC. Beautiful painting done by my youngest daughter of a humpback whale. Books that I'll be taking with me. My tennis net that I get constantly teased about, but it's a wonderful thing for just, you just take off wet gear and you can just hang it over there. It's great for drying stuff out. It's also another handhold. It's something to grab hold of, and it stops stuff sliding around the saloon floor. When
you're sailing, will it be kind of this open?
More or less. These 4 cushions, the backrest cushions, actually fit exactly in this floor space. So they come down and they go onto the floor. Theory being that you can't fall any further than that.
So you plan to sleep on the floor on these cushions?
If the conditions warrant it, I'll wedge myself in with a spinnaker and on those things and this.
And I see you've got a lee cloth there as well.
I have lee cloths. I have the required seat belts or lap belts to keep me on the bunk. But so that will be the side of the boat I try and keep as dry as possible, because this will always be a thoroughfare for wet spinnakers and things coming in and out.
And your food, where's that all stored?
Under there, behind there, up there, over there.
So have you, like everyone else, portioned it up into kind of day bags?
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm going, I really thought I was going to do that, and on my sail up from Cape Town, I realized that there's a need for some spontaneity, because everything else is very routine. You need to take your noon sight at noon, you need to do this at that time, you need to listen to the radio at that time. And one of the things to make life a little bit more interesting is to decide to have something different for supper rather than what you thought you'd planned to have. So,
and are you doing a mix of freeze-dried, canned?
I've got no freeze-dried.
So it's all canned?
It's all cans. Unfortunately, that's as far as the budget extended, and that's what I've got. I also had the massive or the displacement advantage to be able to take a little bit more of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
You obviously, this is your galley area here. Yeah. So your oven, is it gas, alcohol,
yes,
gas?
Gas. Everything is LPG, low pressure gas, propane. And I used it, but I probably won't use the oven as much as I could. It uses a lot more gas just getting up to temperature and things. So most of my meals will be stovetop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously your chart table.
Chart table, the supplies at the back there is the area that I've just thrown everything in because you were coming on board. But
Sorry about that.
It's a storage sort of thing. All my soft stuff, that I don't want flying around the boat, all ends up back in there behind the engine compartment, and there's a weather fax, charging stations for my my VHF radios and stuff. VHF fixed unit in there with the AIS above it and behind it, and then my HF radio right there.
And do you feel confident about using your HF radio?
Kirsten and I chatted quite a bit on the way up. She was 800 or 900 miles behind me on the way up from Cape Town, and we chatted every couple of days just to say hi and where are you kind of thing. And yes, I've got no problem. I was talking to a guy in Cape Town almost from St. Helena, so the range and transmission quality were all good here.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Thanks.